كل عام وانتم بخير والحمد لله على السلامة بعد إجازة الصيف. My name is Dr. Abdulaziz Al-Masoud. I'm consultant gastroenterology in Prince Sultan Military Medical City. I did my general gastroenterology fellowship in McMaster University. Then I did my advanced therapeutic endoscopy in the University of Toronto at St. Michael Hospital. Today our turn to present in GAT Club. We're going to have our presentation include two parts. The first part will be gastro part, will be for about half an hour. Will be presented by Dr. Iyad Makawi. Then we're going to do the second part, which is hepatology case for about 30 minutes. Will be presented by Dr. Ahmed Al-Ghamdi. Dr. Iyad is F2 in gastroenterology and hepatology fellowship. He can start the case.
Okay, bismillah. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Today I'm going to present about IBD therapy and risk of malignancy. I'm going to present about two patients in brief. Then I will talk about the management and risk of malignancy associated with the treatment. First patient, he is a 32-year-old male patient, known case of Crohn's disease for the last 3 years, diagnosed in type ileocolonic fistulizing disease. He was on infliximab and Imuran for the last 3 years, and he was doing fine. The patient was moved to Riyadh for his job and referred to our hospital for follow-up and further management. The patient has missed 2 doses of infliximab during his moving on and came to our clinic for the first time complaining of abdominal pain, diarrhea, and weight loss. Abdominal pain was diffuse, mainly in the lower abdomen, not radiating or referred, diarrhea 8 to 10 times per day, watery, non-bloody. Weight loss of 12 kg for the last 3 months. His symptoms started after he missed the infliximab doses, no other associated symptoms. Patient was seen in the clinic for the first time. Basic investigation and inflammatory markers were requested, colonoscopy and imaging study, and to be seen in the clinic after 1 week as he was refusing to be admitted, although he has symptoms. Basic investigation during his second visit shown WBCs was a little bit high, 11.9, hemoglobin of 10.8, markedly increased in CRB of 143, and ESR of 78. Colonoscopy done for him, which was moderate to severe inflammation in the rectum. Ileocecal valve was widely open with multiple ulceration. The rest of the colon looks normal. Then the patient also he refused to come. He said he will do the image, then he will come to see us. But he presented to our ER a few days later with fever and chills, rigors, with further weight loss. Started on IV antibiotic without improvement. Septic workup, including stool culture, C. diff, came to be negative. CT abdomen done during his admission, which showed spleen enlarged, measuring 17 centimeters with multiple hypodensification. There are multiple enlarged lymph nodes, largest one in the aorta hepatis measuring 2 by 2, the largest one in aorta cava also 2 by 2, and the largest one in the para-aortic measuring 2 by 2, the largest one in the iliac groove measuring 2 by 2. Short segment of terminal ileum wall thickening with a foam sign suggestive of Crohn's disease. No fistula, stricture, or collection seen. So then the patient went for excisional biopsy of the iliac lymph node, which came to be classical Hodgkin lymphoma with cerebral. The next patient, second patient, she is a 47-year-old female patient, known case of Crohn's disease for the last 10 years, ileocecal Crohn's and upper Crohn's. She was on infliximab and Imuran for the last 6 years, and she was doing fine. Patient was on remission for the last 2 years and was not requiring any additional treatment and was following in the clinic till 6 months. No other medical illnesses and no other medication. Last colonoscopy done for her 2013, which showed normal mucosa. Last gastroscopy done in 2010, which showed normal study apart from mild and radiology. Patient came to our clinic complaining of abdominal pain, dyspepsia for the last 2 months, progressive by time. No history of fever, weight loss, or change in appetite. No history of change in bowel habit. No new medication used, and no history of similar condition. Ultrasound done which a few days ago in private clinic before her presentation came to be normal. Basic labs and inflammatory markers also came to be normal. CT abdomen was requested and gastroscopy and also to be seen in the clinic. This is the picture of the endoscopy, which was fungating, ulcerating mass, easily bled, multiple biopsy were taken, mainly occupying the antrum. CT, which showed gastric antral mass with a smooth outer border and no perigastric fatty infiltration. It is not associated with significant lymph node. Consists of gastric cancer T2 and 0. No evidence of distant metastasis. And the biopsy showed well-differentiated adenocarcinoma. Both patients had negative history of family history of malignancy or cancer in their family and previous cancer.
Now, for the two cases, anyone has any comment to what cases?
No, it's the virus status in the first patient.
Sorry?
The EB virus.
EB virus was checked in the second patient, came to be negative. First patient was requested and later on came to be negative also.
Negative, IgG, IgM.
Both IgG, IgM negative.
Okay. Regarding Epstein-Barr virus, in relation to lymphoma patient with IBD, they try to correlate the cases that we have with the lymphoma IBD. We don't find any clear correlation between both Epstein-Barr virus and lymphoma and IBD patient. In other diseases, yes, the person can induce lymphoma. In IBD, not clear correlation.
The reason is that maybe there's no clear relation. There has been some that when you have a patient of combination of antigen of antiviral, the patient with positive EB virus, this is increased the risk more than EB virus negative patients. I mean, we know that combination of antigen and positive increase the risk for yeah, but not this type of lymphoma. Usually some sort of T-cell lymphoma. This is Hodgkin B-cell lymphoma. So,
I think how many cases you have seen with pre-communication to the treatment TNF inhibitor with IBD with malignancy. That means there should be guideline for follow-up those cases who are receiving this the acetylcholine or this TNF inhibitor. It should be a system or guideline for follow-up. What I noticed, there is no definite guideline or definite follow-up for those patients.
what is the ECHO guidelines? There isn't any
Yeah, but not follow-up.
That's something else, right? And the guidelines there is something else.
Previously discussed that Liximab and other drugs with Imuran induce lymphoma together. And TNF by itself alone, in the recent study, showed no correlation with the lymphoma. Most of the patient was combined with Imuran. So the Imuran most likely the cause of lymphoma patient IBD. According to this study, there is no real relation between the TNF and lymphoma. If the patient was only in Liximab or the best, but I think this Dr. Qahtani introduced specifically.
So,
The risk of lymphoma in patients who are receiving dual therapy is 6 in 10,000. So the risk is definitely there, but it's extremely small. So therefore, even if you have guidelines, I mean, you're talking about 6 in 10,000 patients. That's a very small risk to begin with. But nonetheless, it's more than zero. Now, as Walid mentioned, I think there's a controversy regarding anti-TNF therapy and risk of lymphoma, but definitely there's a clear association between beta-glucan 6-MP with lymphoma.
actually, we'll come to that in my review now, and we'll go on this. So just more review about the anti-TNF, which is an important treatment for some inflammatory condition, including rheumatoid arthritis, seronegative spondyloarthropathy, and inflammatory bowel disease. However, multiple adverse effects from anti-TNF was seen, including injection site reaction, infusion reaction, neutropenia, infections, demyelinating disease, heart failure, cutaneous reaction, malignancy, and induced autoimmunity. 5 anti-TNF were approved by FDA, including etanercept, infliximab, enilimumab, and certolizumab, and durvalumab. Anti-TNF and risk of malignancy. There is a measuring score called standardized incidence ratio, have been used to assess the degree of anti-TNF and malignancy, calculated by observed cases of malignancy divided by expected cases by 100. But this is not applicable that much because it's not differentiated between the risk of the disease itself and the treatment itself, because the disease itself can cause malignancy in advance. Challenges establishing malignancy risk. There is some issue regarding to study the exact risk of malignancy from anti-TNF, including risk from underlying disease, as patients with anti-TNF may have an inherited predisposition to cancer based upon their underlying disease, risk of other medication, as most of the patients they are on immunomodulator, and itself can cause risk of malignancy. Exclusion of cancer patients from clinical trial, as patients who have already diagnosed or have history of malignancy, they were excluded from the trials. Variety of cancer patients, as mentioned, it's still the number of patients and the number of cases which prove to be to have malignancy is still rare, and few studies on this new indication, certolizumab and golimumab. Overall risk of cancer, there is evidence for both, with and against increased risk of overall malignancy with anti-TNF. Some meta-analysis and clinical trial have found an increased risk of cancer with anti-TNF, but observational study and particularly from registry have generally been unable to confirm that. Multiple observational reports about the lymphoma. Multiple observational reports have been published on the occurrence of lymphoma in IBD patients treated with anti-TNF. And the studies that attempt quantify an incidence of lymphoma in this clinical setting, the estimate was very broad in range. We'll start with TREAT, which is large Crohn's therapy, resource evaluation and assessment tool. Registry include nearly 25,000 patients per year of follow-up, found no increased risk of lymphoma compared with the control patient. In the other studies of Mayo Clinic, which of 500 patients were included, one patient developed non-Hodgkin lymphoma. The incidence is said to be 0.2%. In the other study in Stockholm County, Sweden found an incidence rate of 1.6%, which is almost 2%. Meta-analysis done by Sigal et al., which found that 13 cases of non-Hodgkin lymphoma were reported among the anti-TNF exposed patients. 10 of them had previously exposed to immunomodulator. Compared with the general population, patients treated with anti-TNF had threefold increase of non-Hodgkin lymphoma, but they were not found to be significantly increased compared with the group treated with immunomodulator alone. Here's the study of details on number of patients, 13 patients who found that almost all of them on infliximab and one of them on adalimumab. 10 of them on immunomodulator and 3 without. Total of patients was 8,900 almost patients from 26 studies. And as mentioned before, 13 patients came to have malignancy, and almost all of them, or most of them, were on anti-TNF. Regarding hepatosplenic T-cell lymphoma, which is a rare condition, aggressive and almost universally fatal extranodal lymphoma, that primarily affect male aged 35 and younger. So the maximum age was 35 found. Between 1996 and 2011, 36 cases of hepatosplenic T-cell lymphoma in patients with IBD were reported. The majority of them occur in male, which with a total of 34 cases of male and 2 female only with Crohn's disease. 16 of these patients, so total of the patient was, all of the patient was on immunomodulator. 16 of them was on immunomodulator alone, and the remaining 20 patients will receive combined therapy with the immunomodulator or Vipurine and the anti-TNF. And the estimated absolute risk based on this for hepatosplenic T-cell lymphoma with patient receiving Vipurine was 1 to 45,000, while the estimated risk for men younger than 35 were 1 to 37,000. And the absolute risk for patient receiving combination therapy, anti-TNF and Vipurine can be 1 to 22,000, and risk for young men less than 35 years with a combination therapy is almost 1 to 3,500. Regarding solid tumor risk, the relation between anti-TNF therapy and increased risk of developing solid organ malignancy were studied in meta-analysis of 18 clinical trials in which statistically significant risk was not identified. The Swedish Rheumatoid Arthritis Registers conclude that the risk of solid malignancy among patients treated with anti-TNF inhibitor is not higher than one would be expected from the underlying disease. Here the study in detail. It's a randomized controlled trial evaluating patients with anti-TNF compared to control group and non-biological DMARD. Inclusion criteria if the study for at least 10 weeks included at least 30 patients with rheumatoid arthritis. So it was mainly for rheumatoid. Treatment arms combination therapy with biological therapy, which means all 2 anti-TNF at least, were excluded from the study. The anti-TNF were studied were adalimumab, infliximab, and etanercept. The meta-analysis and exposure studies pooled analysis around 8,800 patients with rheumatoid arthritis for an average 0.8 years did not identify any increased risk of death, serious adverse event, serious infection, or lymphoma, cutaneous malignancy, including melanoma and non-melanoma skin cancer. These patients were given a recommended dose, not higher than 10 mg per kg, regarding the anti-TNF, especially infliximab. But high dose deletion is associated with increased risk of infection, serious infection. Regarding skin cancer, there is evidence supporting an association between Vipurine and anti-TNF exposure with increased risk of non-melanoma skin cancer in IBD. Longitudinal study reported that patients with persistent exposure to Vipurine for more than 365 days had 4-fold elevation in their risk of non-melanoma skin cancer compared with the patient not taking any immunosuppressant. Patients with the Crohn's disease who had either recent, which means more than 90 days, or persistent exposure to adalimumab and infliximab had 2-fold increase in non-melanoma skin cancer compared with the patient not treated. The risk was further increased when anti-TNF combined with immunomodulator, almost reaching 7-fold increase for non-melanoma skin cancer. Regarding the management of patients who had an IBD and already had cancer, after treating the cancer, and the patient came with a flare of the disease, and the patient was already exposed to anti-TNF. So what to do? We found that patients with IBD with the previous cancer are at higher risk of developing new or recurrent cancer than IBD patients without history of malignancy, irrespective of the use of immunosuppressant. There is rationale for 2 years holiday drug, 2 year drug holiday from immunosuppressant after the diagnosis and treatment of majority of incident cancers. The immunosuppressant that can be initiated or resumed after cancer treatment should be chosen accordingly to the type of the previous cancer. All individual decisions should be made case-by-case basis together with oncologists and according to the characteristic and expected evolution of the index cancer, expected impact of the immunosuppressant on cancer evolution, and intrinsic severity of IBD with its associated increase. In conclusion, although there is an evidence that IBD therapy increases the risk of certain malignancy, particularly lymphoma, hepatosplenic T-cell lymphoma, and melanoma skin cancer, the absolute rate of these malignancies remain low. Patient and clinicians should weigh the risk carefully against the significant potential benefit offered by this medication. Further study designed to specifically assess the risk of cancer associated with the use of immunosuppression therapy in IBD are clearly needed. Thank you.
Just coming to regard to the risk of liver disorder in IBD patient. If we go to the normal population, the risk of having lymphoma or liver disorder is 1 in 10,000, and those patients have IBD either on treatment. Especially if we add the treatment, increase the risk to between 2 and 4%, or as it has been mentioned, 6%. So if we go back, we have to know how to interpret these numbers. So if you say, for example, the normal population have 1 in 10,000 risk of having lymphoma, and if you use this medication, your risk will be 2 to 4 with average of 3 folds. Patient will be scared, and the physician may be scared. But if you interpret these numbers, in reality, it's nothing. 1 in 10,000 is the same like 3 in 10,000. Second issue, we shouldn't be scared from maximizing the treatment of patient with inflammatory bowel disease because of fear of because we are scared that they are going to develop lymphoma disorder or cancer, because those patients will prone them also to cancer and disorder having their disease active. Second issue, nobody will blame you if the patient develops tumor because of the medication rather than having him active disease because of some immunotherapy or not maximizing his treatment. So I think it's a very minimal and remote risk, and everything in medicine having risk. Even having a colonoscopy is more dangerous 10 times than having lymphoma. Those patients have risk of 1 in 1,000 to have colon perforation, and those we have maybe 4 in 10,000. So we shouldn't be scared from maximizing the medication in IBD patient, because this is a big issue, especially when we see patient intensive care. Sometimes we found most patients with IBD will have the doses of medication, and their disease is active. We have to listen to them. Practical issue for this patient. When will you assume to recover? When you assume that infliximab may run for this patient, as we give a holiday for this patient from period, suspect is induced tumor. So when will you assume the medication? Immediately or after chemotherapy, after 2 years? As a practical issue.
The study mentioned that at the end, they mentioned it's at the end it's expert opinion. Still, there is no evidence. They mentioned you give 2 years holiday, and some expert they said 5 years holiday if you can. But if the patient had a flare of the disease and he has still you should resume it from the beginning if he had the symptom.
I think it was case by case, and
Two patients with a plan. One adenocarcinoma, one lymphoma. We know that.
Yeah. For this patient with adenocarcinoma, she already underwent surgery and she had the gastrostomy, and after that, and she was free from her symptoms. If she still remained free from her symptoms, probably I will not resume her medication unless she developed that for at least 2 weeks. And for the other guy, he was symptomatic. Maybe I will resume it after discussion with the patient and the oncology. After he was treated with the chemotherapy and everything is settled down, maybe we'll treat immediately because he's already sick and he already has diabetes.
The patient with the gastric, probably you need this type of patient also to minimize the risk by looking at the H. pylori, treating eradicate H. pylori in this type of patient before you resume the treatment. So you try to minimize as much as you could the risk for, well, I don't know, I mean, if this is my patient, I try to minimize things. I think 1 year, I mean, this is gastric cancer per se, is 1 year after surgery, and says, okay, you can probably start patient by biopsy and investigating disease to already minimize the risk. If that disease is active, you cannot stay just say, well, look, because of the cancer, you may resume it after 2 to 3 months.
Yes.
If the disease is active, you cannot stop like that. Because you don't have much drugs to work with. Plus you're going to work with what? I mean, steroids is not going to help much. I mean, it will induce remission. You need something for maintenance. You cannot stop this because of the issue you had before.
Yes, as Dr. Abdullah clearly mentioned that the three-fold increase in lymphoma, if you interpret it rightly, it is still very low. And the other question for Dr. Masoud is to know that association mainly with non-Hodgkin lymphoma and T-cell lymphoma, systemic T-cell lymphoma. Your patient was Hodgkin.
Yes.
So, and you said A1 was negative in check. You still link it with your medication or just a coincidence? You still link it to the immunomodulator and the medication given, or it could be just a coincidence? Is that right age to get such of cancer risk, especially Hodgkin? Because all the reported or majority are non-Hodgkin. T-cell not Hodgkin.
That could be quick coincidence, but still, we can't say either way. And that's why we have to stop and treat and see if the patient biopsy the score. As Dr. Khalid said, if the patient is symptomatic, let's say if the treatment, we will resume and we grow once again. Because even in the last slide, there was no guidelines, clear guidelines to treat such patient. Go once, get the repair case, and should go with the teamwork between the oncology and between the gastro and the surgery, and to go with the lowest medication can use any carcinogenic even from the oncology part.
I think when the patient develops lymphoma, you send more to lymphoma. And then when they treating the lymphoma, most likely the drugs they're using, it will hit also the disease itself. Unlikely during the chemotherapy cycles, the patient will flare up from his disease. So the immune suppression they use is most of the time they will hit the chronic disease. So that will give you time to, except of course you use like 5-ASA, which is mild things, but I'm talking about severe disease. Otherwise, 5-ASA is okay to go.
Thank you, Dr. Iyad. Now we will go to the second part of our presentation. Dr. Hamid will present the pathology case and it will be supervised by Dr. Ali Yunus.
Assalamu alaikum. So hopefully the case will not take that long. I think although it is an interesting diagnosis, it probably wasn't that difficult. So we will concentrate more on the management part. That's all. Then we can start.
My name is Ahmed Imam. Here with this in the short case for pathology. So the history, this is a 32-year-old female patient unknown to have any medical illnesses before. Patient presented to the private hospital in 2012 with a 1-week history of the abdominal distension and bilateral lower limb swelling. So this abdominal distension was progressive over the week and associated with abdominal pain, mainly in the right upper quadrant area, dull in nature and radiating outward. The lower limbs swelling was bilateral, not changing with the position and up to the knees. No associated hematemesis or melena. So there was no history of the fever, weight loss or change in the appetite, no history of change in the bowel habit, no history of aspirin or NSAID use, no history of jaundice or a biliary disease, no history of similar symptoms before. So the past history, patient is not known to have any medical illnesses before with no previous hospitalization and not known to have any allergy, not on any regular medication. The family history was positive for the DPT of their sister. So she is married, educated, lived in Tabuk with their family, no tobacco, alcohol or IV drug use or abuse. The systemic review, besides the described GI symptoms, the patient remaining the system review was unremarkable. So the menstrual history, it is a regular menstruation with the history of the hormonal therapy. So is there any suggestion now or any question or to proceed?
The period was what, Ahmed, for what? Distension, abdominal distension?
For only 1 week. She was present in 2012 in private hospital with abdominal distension and lower limb swelling.
Any sexual odem?
No.
No.
No substitution. Huh?
Examination.
Yeah.
You didn't come to that examination.
Yeah, still will come to the examination.
Okay, you did the examination.
There is still-
Can you elaborate more on hormonal therapy or contraceptive?
Actually, she takes the medication in Tabuk. This only from the report. She doesn't know it's the name, but I think it's more of a contraceptive from her prescription, but we are not sure 100%.
Yeah, it was oral contraceptive. It was not really there when she first presented, and also she's not from Riyadh, so we just saw for her liver disease part. Any other question about the
No
history?
diarrhea, no arthralgia.
No, they are in one class.
Sometimes he's dealing with some sort of bad gas and shoot up.
Okay, so why don't we go to the examination?
So, in examination, the general examination, patient was sitting comfortably, not in pain or distress. He good body talk, good body mass index 29, not a jaundice, GPB, not ready. So, abdomen examination, the abdomen was distended, visible superficial pains, mild right upper quadrant tenderness with a positive shifting dance. So the lower limbs, it was postulating edema up to the knees, and there is also varicose vein. Otherwise, unremarkable examination. So now, the patient was told in medical advice in private hospital. Initial lab work are not available to us. Then they did forehead there in the book followed CT scan that reported as thrombosis of the short segment of IPC at the level of the hepatic veins, confluence, and congested motor liver with multiple regional nodule, and they say this is going with bad hair. This is in 2012. Then they did forehead also there, endoscopy, they found the large varices, they did multiple endoscopy with endoscopic variceal ligation. So, since that time, they put her on the warfarin 3 milligram for 2 years duration, and she was referred to us for the possible tips.
Okay, so comments here. Basically, the physician there treated her like medically with the anticoagulant from the description that she responded well, her symptoms disappeared, her edema improved, and she was asymptomatic. She had border hypertension, but well controlled with banding. With the last endoscopy did before coming to us showed only grade 1 varices and she never had bleeding.
No point in that. This is status.
Exactly. So why should he go for this?
There is no point at all. I mean, if you want to tips her, it tips her that the history or it's acute or something. Now it's a problem. It's used somebody. Now, I don't know what even he organized her, which is maybe fine, but you should look for the cause of why she's hyperglycemic. I mean, what's the reason why hyperglycemic status? Is it the hormone? Is there something like some PPC or there's something else? You should work on that line first. keep in mind, we have big series of these cases, but carrying doctors. And you'll be surprised when the cause of Badr
Sounds like Dr. Khadwa as an architecture. Okay.
Okay, now she her ascites disappeared. She doesn't have GI bleeding. Her varices are well controlled. I have to say that she was well managed from all aspects, including proper anticoagulation, with scheduled endoscopies and so on. And her liver function is normal. So are we all in agreement that probably CAPS was not really a bright idea to consider the situation? Different opinions? Oh. Okay, so let's first start with her first CT. That we want to comment. We welcome Dr. Ahmed Rabi. He is our interventional radiologist in Prince Sultan, and now he is in National. So, where are the images?
Abu Nawafal, the patient was seen in outpatient clinic and she was completely asymptomatic, no abdominal distension or pain, and no abdominal swelling. So the case was discussed in hematology and radiology meeting, and she was admitted electively for the further workup. Okay, her lab initiated, the CBC was hemoglobin with low MCP, low CH, and the hepatic profile was within the normal except INR 2.1, and she was non-carrier. So all the thrombophilia workup, including routine SC, antithrombin GAT2, and factor V, and all within the negative hepatitis serology also needed. So we proceed with the evaluation.
We have percent images from the CT, which is done probably in a space here, you can see. On the coronal section, you see the macropathic vein is totally thrombosed, and at the top of the IBC, you see a small web. You can appreciate this web on the side television. It's very thin web. As you can see here, there's narrowing of the IBC at that certain level. On the axial image, you see the level of the web. We don't see any filling of the hepatic veins as well. The parenchyma of the liver itself looks very mottled. You don't see normal enhancement. And also, which indicates chronicity of the occlusion, you see the anterior abdominal wall is very extensive. So she's diverting the flow from the IVC into the SBC through the inferior epigastric veins into the superior epigastric veins all the way to the SBC. So this explains why she has the symptoms of polychiari. It's IVC web. Also explains why she has bilateral swelling. So I'll leave the
So this is
you see the axial cut here and the IVC, you don't see the web. This is the other part of the IVC, so it's just it's a little bit tilted, it's not completely. Also you see the esophageal varices, you see enhancement in the distal esophagus, which indicates the esophageal varices.
which were endoscopically not really very prominent, but radiologically they were seen. So we do have now a good image saying that the cause, let's say, is more obvious, it is an IMC web. We don't have bioserological or biochemical evidence of thrombophilia. Yet the veins, the hepatic veins are occluded. And they are the worst. Because
I mean, too late. I think this is important because we usually suspect webs from the radio nodes. We have cases of webs, and we don't need depths, nothing. The basic radiologists go and rupture that webs and went from case B. But and these are being described mainly also in India.
what was the description of the hepatic vein in these patients?
They already similar to this. They get attenuated. They get, but when they do the angio, they see the webs clearly. Because the web is the latest form of thrombus to form.
Okay. So the primary event is like the presence of the web, and then it triggers something else.
Exactly.
Could it be a trigger, another trigger, like the oral contraceptive pills? Could it be like
But the web is a well-known in the literature description of the web causing such. It's well known. This is not very well known, described, especially in young patients.
Yes. Actually, it may trigger total IBC occlusion as well. They may present with total IBC occlusion, which may make them very symptomatic. Post-thrombotic syndrome, apart from delivery issues. But definitely the web, the presence of the web will trigger the hepatic vein occlusion and blood clot symptoms. And as I said, once you rupture the web, the flow will
So as we can see, there wasn't really much fluid retention. Not much ascites. Yes, the collateral was so obvious, but she doesn't have any clinically any detectable ascites and low edema when she came to us. However, after we discussed this in the radiology meeting, after seeing this, now we went to the next step, which is the urinopathy.
So we decided to go ahead and try the equalization of the IBC, try to penetrate the web. Probably the congestion of the liver will improve, and the lower swelling will improve as well. And clearly, we approach this web from the jugular axis. You can see blunt end in the vein near the IBC, and this is the IBC from below. We see the also almost totally blunt. This is simultaneous injection from above and from below at the same time. You see, there's no flow here. This is like falsely long segment. In fact, it's a very short segment. It's like a very small web. You see the divergent flow into the interlumbar veins, into the hepatic veins as well, like extracellular hepatic veins, into the suprahepatic IBC. So it's we tried to utilize this segment with all standard techniques. We failed, but ultimately we used the fifth needle in order to penetrate this part of the liver. We interconnected both segments altogether. Can we go next?
So what kind of
Line puncture or something?
No, it's not line. We usually try with the standard techniques like standard wire, back wire.
No, my question to you, Ali, what are you going to do? I mean, I wouldn't go this aggressive or whatever. She's acute. She's already getting into the deal is already gone.
Could it be a
The process is already gone by your directives. What are you going to get?
Could it progress to extensive?
Consider this is a basic procedure. Consider this may end in a disaster unnecessary.
No, but could it progress? Like, it might be to the wall of IBC thrombosis, and you get not only the hepatic vein. No,
You already have to look at it.
I'll probably disagree with this point. These patients ultimately will progress into pulmonary care. They may end up with total liver failure because of the chronic polycarditis symptoms, very bad venous hypertension, and if they get IVC thrombosis, things are gone. There's no way you can do transplant.
About 3 years.
Yes, but if you wait for a few more years, yeah, she's 30.
The reason we decompress in acute polycarditis to salvage the liver, because the liver is still viable when you divert the blood. Now blood is diverted by itself by the collaterals. So
But she has venous hypertension.
unlikely, yeah, she will have the blood hypertension. He's already treated that. He looked at the by the endoscopy, there is no risk of eating something. These type patients, you treat them as a chronic urticaria, you have to do it until their liver failed and send it to transplant.
But the nidus is there. Yeah? The nidus, what triggered everything is there.
Yeah, this is wrong.
You don't want to install the contraceptives, contraceptives and it's something for population.
Well, I mean, you have to weigh also the benefit risk. I'm not saying you may do it, I'm not against that, but you have to be supported by something.
What's the other option for her?
Just something for that and
Coagulation and
continue the
until she gets the transplant.
Yeah. And they may
Why
need,
not to risk her transplant, give her a long time?
they may take 15 years until they need transplant.
about tips. Why would you consider tips in
You
these
see, the
cases?
tips, you see, the tips you're gonna to do it, you will divert the blood, it will help in the blood, in the portal hypertension, it will help the ascites, if there is ascites. But what happened in the liver is already done, it's already cirrhotic, you're not going to reverse it. So, she's not having ascites, portal hypertension is already treated by beta blockers, and she's not bleeding. I'm not seeing.
Where is the evidence of cirrhosis here? We don't have evidence of cirrhosis yet.
Definitely, we will say you to show this out. You biopsy afterwards.
We haven't biopsied. We haven't biopsied.
Then I make a comment.
She's not. Yeah, he made portal hypertension is there.
Take opinion to go, who will go with?
Yeah, we'll go to this, I will leave it until the end, if you don't mind. Let's go for the short discussion.
The only thing is that we should wait a while to see what happens. Maybe that she's a success and the picture is better, her ascites went away, her blood didn't improve. Maybe she told the balance is the following. We have got a long segment, we could have dislodged a clot into her lungs, it could happen. But we see what happened to her when we did this.
We'll vote at the end, but Dr. Muhammad, do you have any other comment?
Regarding the comments themselves, these cases are chronic occlusion. There is no acute cause. So no worry about the PE, unless she gets PE from DVT and then later. But during the procedure, there is no risk of PE. These are chronic occlusions. Once you penetrate the fibrin membrane, whatever, there is resumption of flow, then there is no risk of PE. Unless there is acute on top of chronic, then you run the risk of the PE.
Great. Any other damage for
So ultimately we're able to get through this area after penetrating the membrane by tips needed. This is the final venogram. You can clearly see the decompression. Actually, if you do the venogram, there are some other images probably. You can see the venogram from below. You see no more residual filling of the left. So that will relieve her venous, in general, will relieve her venous hypertension, decrease the lowering of swelling, decrease the risk of total IVC thrombosis as well, which may worsen the total symptoms. Ideally, in these cases, we usually prefer to stent, consider stenting in these cases. We decided to not to stent because there was no residual luminant nerve. So we decided to wait and just give her a chance of angioplasty and all. Do you have a last CT? We penetrated it and ruptured it. Up and up. We dilated it. We dilated it. Yeah, this is exactly where the web is. So this was totally obliterated, and this is the post angioplasty program. So in general, these cases we prefer to stent, but we're conservative in this case.
So your preferred way of follow-up is?
Usually CT.
Because biologically there was nothing very follow-up, everything was normal. And clinically, as you said, it was not. So radiologically is the way to...
Because these will come back. It will recoil. The liver is very congested because of the chronic bradycardia. It will collapse the IVC again. It will come back.
The coagulated loop, which is going to be large, may rest in the
Exactly. So that's why we prefer stenting.
That's one part which is, cannot help it much. I don't know.
Yes, and ultimately these patients end up with tips to bridge them to transplant. In order to reduce the portal hypertension, she already has gastric varices, this sphincter varices. So in order to decompress the portal hypertension, they will ultimately end up with tips, if no transplant is done.
Great. So then you have 3 minutes. Is it enough?
Okay.
For your slides, and then we will talk about what's next step in that.
Okay, now there's more talk about the PRI and the IPC work. The PRI is classified as a primary and secondary, and the primary type is usually secondary to the congenital, and the secondary type uses secondary flow obstructions, either thrombus or any anatomical structure, malignancy or compression. So the IPC web, called also the membranous obstruction of the inferior vena cava, it is a very rare in the Western countries and more frequent in India, South America, Japan, and Korea. It is usually not difficult to diagnose, especially in countries where it is relatively common. So there is also classification for the IPC web. Class 1 IPC web with latent hepatic vein, and class 1B is the IPC web with occluded hepatic vein. The class 2 is the absent segment of the IPC with occluded hepatic vein, and the class 3 is the IPC with stenosis and stenosis of the IPC with the latent hepatic vein. So the clinical diagnosis of this is usually the same of the picture of the blood KI, typical symptoms and signs of the portal hypertension. So the pathogenesis, it is unknown, but there is some investigators suggest that it is congenital lesion or acquired condition. So the radiology, the sonographic finding of the IPC web will describe, and in the ultrasound there is obstruction of the hepatic portion of the IPC, obstruction of one or more hepatic vein, reversed flow in the hepatic vein, and enlarged inferior right hepatic vein. Also there is communicating vessels between the inferior right hepatic vein and the right or middle hepatic vein or both. So this is the IPC, and this is the called the fibroscore live picture in the IPC. So also in MRI, it is also useful in the diagnosis of the IPC web. So the how differentiation between the IPC web and thrombosis of the inferior vena cava. So the thrombus formation is not uncommon complication of the IPC web. It is essential to exclude the thrombosis of the IPC before performing the angioplasty. In addition to the MRI, also can help in this one, and inferior vena capnography also to help to differentiate between either web or thrombus. So the thrombotic occlusion of the inferior vena cava, it is absolute contraindication to the angioplasty. This will be found in this article, but we don't know.
This is thrombotic. If you have acute thrombosis.
Acute.
If you have acute thrombosis, you have to treat with thrombolysis first, then angioplasty.
So it's not absolute.
You start with the thrombolysis, then treat the underlying cause.
So the management in the past, the care was always treated surgically with the introduction of the angioplasty, now treated with this. It varies according to the etiology and the effect of the obstruction. So in the cases of complete or segmental occlusion of the IPC, the use of the percutaneous revascularization procedure is increasingly more common, whereas the surgery is reversed for the cases that cannot be resolved percutaneously. The procedure can be performed safely under the fluoroscopic guidance in several views to assure the proper handling of the needle as it perforates the membrane. So the balloon angioplasty offers a good initial result, although the rate of the restenosis it varies from the 3 to 48% according to the series. Compared to the result with the balloon, the stenting improved the long-term outcome as it reduced the incidence of restenosis. So the angioplasty versus the operation. Why the operation is not a good choice? Because the hepatic venous outflow obstruction maybe is circumventing different form of the operation, decompression or shunting procedure, and the liver transplant surgical treatment usually is not as apart from the ideal. Placing the synthetic grafts in the venous system to bypass the IPC obstruction is a difficult procedure. Also, in the graft is prone to the occlusion. So the angioplasty versus the stenting, restenosis after the angioplasty can be treated either with redilation or with stent. The placement of stent not only add a cost to the procedure, but may interfere with the orthotopic liver transplant that the patient need, which may ultimately by indicating the patient with severe fibrosis or end-stage liver dysfunction. So, in conclusion, the percutaneous revascularization for the complete vena cava occlusion in patients with Budd-Chiari syndrome was a safe procedure that proved long-term effectiveness. So now, is there any role for anticoagulation in this patient now?
Yeah, the easiest part of the management was really to refer the patient to Dr. Muhammad, and he took care of that. You know, the difficult part for the pathologist really now, what do you do with the anticoagulation? Huh?
Likely lifelong.
Yeah, let's vote then. Or who will anticoagulate lifelong this lady? Only Dr. Khalid and long term. But long term is what? 1 year, 2 years, 5 years? Now she is 3 years.
6 months.
She is 3 years now, and so will you stop the anticoagulant?
For this lady?
Yeah, she's 3 years.
I mean, no, for 2 years.
Hemophilia, what was
This is a
negative?
very long segment.
Hemophilia, what was
Negative.
negative? All contraceptives have been stopped. I think I'll give it 6 months to 1 year now.
After the procedure, you mean?
At least.
So 6 months after procedure,
6 months.
you will do the same, Dr. Nahma. Others.
good and classy and
Get the hematologist.
Hematologist will tell you what is the opinion of the hematologist. After, what will you do?
Refer to warfarin and to be confirmed this patent. Visit to you as same.
Patent what? IBC will hepatic.
Like I see. Tabish and everything.
Recanalization, was it for the IBC or
IBC.
the veins?
IBC.
It's still included.
Yeah,
Still included in the
Yeah.
veins.
And actually the repeated scan showed still the right hepatic vein is included, the middle hepatic vein is wild, partially included, but left hepatic was
So the flow is improving, but the liver function will improve.
the function is perfectly normal from the little before.
But it will progress with cirrhosis. Because the liver pills are good and the IBC is
So you will not calculate that one? For 6 months still?
Probably 6 months.
There was still a waste in that X-ray. Well, not discussed. When you
Maybe-
look at the dilatation, there was still a waste on that X-ray where the web was.
We know there is up to 40% chance that it will recur. But it is membranous.
Yes.
Time. So I think the hematologist said anticoagulate lifelong. So will you do this something different yourself? Why did you say Muhammad that you were anticoagulate?
Because of the hepatic vein occlusion and the potential recurrence of the IBC occlusion.
Obviously, she's young, 30-year-old. She had no children yet. They are very keen, herself and the husband, to have children, and we know how difficult really to anticoagulate and maintain, the anticoagulatory pregnancy. However, honestly, I was so excited about the idea of stopping it until really we discussed it further. The team, everybody was really against that. The hematologist said, continue the anticoagulant, so I wasn't having that courage really to stop the work. She's still doing very well. She's asymptomatic. I think there was a plan to consider repeating the denopathy. However, we will continue with the CT.
Off treatment or on treatment?
She's on
In the CT, there's an evidence of nodularity or
yes. But we know the limitation of image in this case. We are planning to do a fibrous scan.
What I'm saying,
we know the limitation.
not against what you did, that's something, but I'm not sure it's really going to be, are we treating here or are we treating ourselves and our excitement and our, let's do something we can do.
No, but there is a rationale behind it. I don't know. There is a poverty of evidence in this area.
No, if you without biopsy, you know she's over.
we cannot.
So, you open that, I know, that opening is good, if it's in the day, and then like 6 weeks, or which is an acute or subacute stage. When it's a chronic, when we exceed 3 months, 4 months, usually these type of patients is useless to intervene.
There is a game in this patient. The flow improves, maybe the braces will disappear, but the liver synthetic function and the
But
hepatic
the
flow will not.
varices itself was not a problem for that to start. They already banned it, they already discovered it's already eradicated, they can handle it. I mean, they say she bled, she's an anticoagulant, now we're going to tips her to divert the blood or to reduce the blood. That's something else, but now it's okay.
I was actually talking to Ahmed about, I'll continue. That, okay, what shall we say about this point? Well, I was telling him that actually because of this, poverty of evidence in that area, no control trials, no guidelines, no whatever, they are all case reports. So I think whatever we do is correct. What do you think? And if we think, then we are correct, and if we give 6 months. Actually, yeah, she did.
This is a game.
No, the question here is really, first, she's doing it there, not in our hospital, because she's over the area. And the varices were actually eradicated, almost eradicated before the procedure, a very great one.
What about the gastric?
The gastric one, I didn't have any comment on that.
So I have one question.
Yes, sorry.
So do you think, I want to go back to the original question, do you think the web was the reason for all her symptoms?
Yes.
So if you have eliminated the web, why would one have the fact that go back?
Because of the hepatic vein thrombosis.
So if you believe that the hepatic vein thrombosis is the cause of her symptoms currently, and because of levels of then she should be antibacterial for life. So, so my question is, what do you think is the etiology? Is it the primary insult of the web? Or is it now that she has had hepatic vein occlusion that is causing worsening of her symptoms? And if you choose one, then it's no anticoagulation. And if you choose the other, then I think it's probably like anticoagulation.
Actually, if we think about it, was the web present before the event?
More than likely, yes, because if you think it's congenital.
So it was there, and then secondary, she had the thrombosis. And she was on OCP.
Right, so that's the other question then. Is this thrombosis induced secondary to her medication? And if it is, then with stopping the medication, since all of her protein C and estrogens and all of her work is negative, do you think is stopping the OCP result in?
There is another part because of the family history. She had a sister, first degree, she had thrombosis, diabetes. So we know, I mean, it's not something that if thrombosis recur or progress, then she would be in trouble. She might die. And especially she's in an area where, for example, interventional radiology service is not there, transplant is not there, and we might not be able to save. So it's a very tough situation. Recurrence of her thrombosis, especially if it's extensive, then it might really lead to a catastrophe.
Let's say something. We have the most biggest series is we have around 60 cases of cardiac and you'll be surprised with the cases, majority. It was Behçet disease. So I need also to ask about this because Behçet disease has become so common in us that we forget about causing such things. So that's one way you look at it.
Okay. Any other comment, question?
I mean, you need to make the patient
in the decision. Either to continue morphine, and the risk factor, and risk. So the patient needs to decide, the physician, the teamwork, the provision, as a team, adjudication, what is the best? Sometimes we don't get clear answers. The patient decide. And the patient will decide to work.
You are right, and that helps. She's very nice and educated lady with an educated husband, and they help her a lot in making the decision. Thank you very much.